What is going down, YouTube? What is going down, Raider Nation? Whoa, tough news for Mike Mayock. Yikes. Looks like he didn't get the vote of Mark Davis, officially fired today, Monday. Ian Rappaport reported this, and he also said that this decision has actually been made a few days ago. The Raiders already knew they weren't going to keep Mike Mayock. It just took a couple days to make it official this Monday. So he will not be back as the GM, which is pretty intense because he had quite a long run, but he was ultimately a John Gruden nepotism hire. Now today we're going to talk about candidates, coaching candidates, GM candidates, who the Raiders are already set to interview. And I'm going to tell you guys more about these people. But first, we're going to talk about Mike Mayock's history with the Raiders. How much of an impact did he have, and did he mess up? And was this the right decision? So we know former draft analyst from ESPN, hired by John Gruden, had 3 draft classes, 2019, 2020, and 2021. And I want to ask you guys, Raider Nation, what do you think about this firing? Should the Raiders have kept Mike Mayock? Was it the right decision to move on? Let me know what you think in the comments below. Because here's the thing. The fact that Mike Mayock is fired, in my opinion, means no more Rich Bisaccia. I do not think Rich Bisaccia will be the head coach. Think about it. Mike Mayock made the decision to make Rich Bisaccia the interim head coach. It was his choice. Had they kept Mayock, it would make sense that they would keep Rich, but since they're getting rid of the guy who literally appointed Rich Bisaccia to interim head coach, probably not going to go with Rich Bisaccia in that case. But let's take a look at some of these details here. Now, just looking at this draft class, you can see 2019, Mike Mayock's first draft, and I believe Gruden had more of a hand in this draft class because think about it. It was Mayock's rookie year. He's not going to give him the full keys to the car. He's going to let him have a little more experience as a GM before he gives him the keys to the car. So in my opinion, this was heavily a Gruden draft. I think common sense and logic just tells you that. Cleveland Ferrell, we know how that worked out. Luckily, and thank goodness, we got Max Crosby right here. But Cleveland Ferrell was the first pick of the Mayock era. Yes, Gruden probably had an impact on that, but ultimately he was not the guy who we thought he was going to be. He was not the dominant pass rusher that we expected. More of a run stopper and still a decent DN and a solid DN, but 4th overall, could have picked up people like Devin White, and who knows? There's just so many players. You can go through the list of name that we could have gotten. Maybe we could have traded back. People claim, Mayock always claims that, we couldn't trade back. Dude, you could always trade back in the NFL. I do not know what he is talking about. Trayvon Mullen, round 2, solid pick. He's injured this year, but I think he is a solid number 2, sometimes a number 1 corner for us. He is a starting corner in the NFL, and I believe he can start for many other teams. So that is a solid pick at number 2. No 3rd-round draft pick. We had 2 other first-round picks, Jonathan Abram and Josh Jacobs. Josh Jacobs, I don't like picking a running back high in the draft, but you can't deny this guy's a monster. He's really emerged at the end of this past 2021 season, getting a little healthier, and we saw the Pro Bowl style back he can be. I think we just need better running lanes for him to go through. But I still like the pick overall. I like getting a running back more in the 2nd round, but still, when you get a Pro Bowler in the 1st round, you gotta love it. So Josh Jacobs, that's a good pick. Jonathan Abram, held back by injuries, especially in his rookie year. Really a liability in coverage, in my opinion, unless he's in the box. You've seen him be a liability in Paul Guenther's system and even have some problems in Gus Bradley's scheme. Still a decent pick. I don't think this is a 1st-round pick. Crosby, obviously, it's an amazing pick. It's a steal of the draft. Isaiah Johnson never really worked out. Foster Moreau and Hunter Renfrow in the 4th and 5th round. Wow, those are just amazing picks. I think Foster Moreau can start at tight end for other teams if we didn't have the great Darren Waller. So overall, I do like this draft. Now, when we look at 2020, this is probably the worst draft in Raider history at this point. I mean, come on. It doesn't get much worse than this. Bryan Edwards in the 3rd round, though, still really solid. He has been held back by injuries. We know in 2020 he pretty much didn't play besides a few games. And I think that's held him back, but he's shown how talented he can be. Look at the Chargers game, Bryan Edwards, clutch catches, and the Ravens game. So I think he could turn into something special. Really disappointing that Tanner Muse didn't work out, and you don't really see him in a lineup for another team. So maybe it was a bad decision overall, and a bad decision to get Lynn Bowden Jr. in the 3rd round as well. That has not paid off. And Mayock and Gruden, they should have known what they were doing. And I personally think the 2020 draft is more of a Mayock draft because you have the successful 2019 draft, your rookie year as a GM. Gruden gives you the keys to the car and says, go off, king, in 2020. And this is what you get. Netway. Wow. First round pick, Damon Arnett, probably one of the worst draft picks for the Raiders in so long. Never looked like a starter, partially injured in 2020, and just really embarrassing of a pick. Henry Ruggs. I really do believe that if Henry Ruggs wouldn't have had the DUI, he would end up being better than CeeDee Lamb and Jerry Jeudy. I think he was on pace to have a better year than both of them. And at the end of the day, I do not regret the Henry Ruggs pick, and I think Mayock and Gruden made the right decision to draft Ruggs. He's a great dynamic player. Just made a bad decision, and that's what happens to you. But that I think, from a drafting perspective, that is a good choice to pick Henry Ruggs there over CD and Jeudy. So really, the third round was just really bad outside of Bryan Edwards and John Simpson in the fourth round. I know he's a liability sometimes. He's improved, and to be honest, he is a steal, I believe. He is a solid depth piece on the O-line and can start, and he's done a decent job starting. He's not the greatest, but he's still, I think, a top 64 guard in the NFL. And, there's two guards on the field at a given time. So I still think John Simpson, that late fourth round, is a really great pick. Amik Robertson, I think the size has still been an issue. 2021. Now, this is Mayock having a little, I think, even more leeway. 2020 is objectively bad. 2019 is good, but then the Farrell thing and the Abram thing kind of lowers the value, in my opinion. But 2021, I think Gus Bradley had an impact in this draft. We need a defense. This is a defensive draft. Leatherwood in the first round. Clearly, that early at pick 17 was a mistake. I think it's a mistake at this point. Everybody thought it was too early, and look, he started out as a right tackle, had to move him to guard. That's not good for anybody. Trayvon Merring, wow, what a diamond, what a jewel, what a steal in the draft. This guy has been a great safety this year, and we were so stoked to get him in the second round. So I think that's good. Malcolm Kuntz has made an appearance and had a sack, made a little bit of an impact, but still just a depth piece at this point and a little bit of a project. Divine Diablo, wow, turning out to be a really great pick. Coming in at linebacker towards the second half of the season and really making an impact, and I believe he's going to be a starter at linebacker for the Raiders next year. Gillespie, haven't really seen him play much, still a special teamer. Nate Hobbs, probably the best pick since Max Crosby. I would say Nate Hobbs might be the best draft pick since Max Crosby. Fifth round, and you're getting a straight stud, highest PFF graded cornerback, and really he's going to be a starter for years for the Raiders in the slot. So you got to like that. Got to like some aspects of this draft. But then some aspects, Jimmy Morrissey, seventh round, didn't even use him, and he ended up starting for the Texans. So it's like, wow. Why do we let him go? Why do we re-sign Andre James if we're going to get Jimmy Morrissey, somebody who's a starting caliber, at least for one of the 32 teams in the NFL? That's pretty good. Hey, but we do have some GM candidates. DuJuan Daniels. Right now, he is a senior executive for the Raiders, hired in 2019 from the Patriots. He had worked in the scouting department of the Patriots for several years, since 2006. And he was incentivized to come to the Raiders in 2019 when Mayock was hired, because we said, hey, you could probably move up here. And now he has a chance to really move up and be a GM. Ian Rappaport has reported that the Raiders are considering hiring him. They really like him as an in-house candidate, and he will be interviewed. And I am interested to see what happens there. This guy has a long career in the NFL, and he seems very well respected. Speaking of a lot of respect, head coach. It looks like we're going to need one. It looks like we're not going to roll with Bisaccia, especially for getting rid of the GM. And the Raiders have put in a request to interview Jerod Mayo, the former Defensive Rookie of the Year for the Patriots, two-time Pro Bowler, Super Bowl champion. This guy, I think, would be awesome. He is a former player and kind of young, and we've seen great players from New England become great coaches. Look at Mike Vrabel, right? People like that. So I would be very interested to see how Jerod Mayo can do. He has only started coaching since 2019, hired as a linebacking coach for the Patriots. Who knows? But the Raiders are going to interview this guy, so get excited, and let's start talking a little bit more about Mayo. And honestly, from all my burgers and sandwiches, I'm a mustard and mayo guy. It's some of my favorite things. Another GM candidate, Patriots, man. It seems like Mark Davis is really interested in the Patriots. Dave Ziegler. He is somebody who is going to be interviewed by the Raiders. He is He is somebody who's going to be interviewed by the Raiders. He was a scout for Denver in 2010, but then after 3 years was hired by the Patriots. Worked as an assistant in pro personnel, but ultimately moved his way up in 2019 to the director and head of pro personnel in New England for the Patriots. And the Broncos actually tried to hire this guy and get him on their squad prior to the 2020 season, but Belichick went out of his way, offered more incentives to keep Ziegler. So Ziegler is a highly sought-after GM candidate. Denver wanted him. Patriots wanted to make sure they kept him, and now the Raiders are in the mix and gonna interview this guy. The Raiders actually have put in a request already to interview Ed Dodds of the Colts. The Colts assistant GM, Ed Dodds, is a highly sought-after GM candidate. The Raiders put in a request to interview him, along with Dave Ziegler and some of those other people that I mentioned. So he's someone who could be really good. And you see the Colts have built a really good roster over the years, and we played them. They're a really good team. We were able to whoop their ass, though, right? But let's actually put a boo in for the Colts, right? Let's put a boo in for the Colts. We took care of them. But hey, we're going to interview this guy. Chicago Bears are also interested in interviewing him, so who knows what could happen there. I just wanted to keep you guys up to date with all the GM interview requests and the head coaching interview requests with Jerod Mayo. Keep in mind, the Rooney Rule is involved here. We actually have to interview a certain amount of minority coaches prior to hiring a coach. So it is kind of weird that at least two of these candidates are minority coaches because maybe they are just following the Rooney Rule policy. However, I think these candidates are great candidates, and I hope that this is a legit interview and not just going through protocol. And I believe it is. Jerod Mayo, I think, would be really interesting, put some young energy for our team, and hopefully it works out. And hopefully you guys like this video. Like it if you watched it all the way through. And remember to subscribe to this channel, man, if you want more updates, more information about the Raiders. We're going to go live every single week on Mondays, and I hope to see you at the next one. My name is Wi-Fi Willie, bro. See ya.